So I think the more content you have, on the one hand, the more opportunity you have to repurpose, but also just the more complicated the whole thing is. And
It's
like, where
true.
do you start? Which content do you repurpose? How do you repurpose it? So can you walk us through your strategy for doing this? How do you go about repurposing content in the best way?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times people think of repurposing your content as sort of this binary thing, like either we haven't repurposed it or we have. But really, it's more of like a flywheel and kind of the evolution of the way that you use your content. So the first thing you can do is just use the content as it is somewhere else, which is copying your content, right? So using the body of a blog post as the body of an email, for example, to just send that out in full, reuse something that you have. But you can also grab pieces of it. So my guess is a lot of folks are already doing this, whether that's getting short clips from our conversation being used to promote the full conversation we're having here, or the best stat or quote from a particular piece you create being made into an infographic, for example. Um, so there's copying, excerpting, updating is one of the biggest opportunities, I think, that's really often
Mm,
overlooked. That the content that you already have on your site, if you're taking a look at what's working well and what's not, and looking for opportunities to improve that existing content before you're worried about making too many new pieces of content. There's a lot of data that shows you can see a pretty substantial increase in traffic if you're able to update the relevance of some of those older posts. So that might mean giving it a new image.
mm,
This is something actually we saw quite a bit during the early days of the pandemic. Remember, there was this moment where everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to do things virtually instead of in person now, and we're wearing masks, whereas we weren't before." There was this mad dash to go update your content to show photos of people in masks, or
mm,
show a Zoom meeting instead of a handshake, right, in an article, because that article is still relevant, but with the wrong header image, it seems like it's not, right? Like we're not gathering in big spaces, or we're not having a meeting
right.
in person. Um, so even something as simple as changing out the photo can help, something that you've already
Mm,
created stay relevant. But there's lots of other opportunities too, adding new information, changing the headline to see if a different, positioning or framing is going to help. There's a lot of different ways, and there's, you can also reformat the content, curate it into
mm,
collections. There's a lot of options out there, but I think seeing repurposing as more of a holistic process rather than a did
mm.
I reuse this or not, kind of opens up the field for lots more options for you.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a useful. Well, you're not exactly making a distinction, but I think you're including updating content within the larger umbrella of repurposing, right? Which,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, which it's all kind of part of the same process, right?
Yeah, because I think we
Mm.
put content out, and a lot of times because we're part of, this marketing machine, you may assume that when you put the content out, it's done, right? Like I've done my diligence, I've given it its best shot, and like I'm setting it free into the world like a baby bird, and I hope it flies. But there's sort of this follow-up of being able to make use of it in new places when you copy it, or updating it so that it gets new life again. There's a lot of different ways you can do that throughout the continued life of the content, so that you're not just putting it out and letting it be. You're kind of continuing to build, make it more of a flywheel and part of your process.